ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the MEDCast. Today I have a special guest with me. Was actually a PE coach of mine years ago, and now just kind of sitting there, was talking to the wife, and she's like, "Why don't we get Randy Harpster on? He has a lot of accolades, but he's also very, very well known in the community, but also is one of the nicest and just overall great people that we're lucky to have as part in our lives." So. Real quick, I'm just going to kind of give him a quick little introduction, and he'll kind of elaborate a little bit more on some of the stats that we have here. But he is an IBCA Hall of Fame coach induction in 2017. He's a state champion. Randy has more than 450 wins and 28 years of coaching on the middle school level. Included in this 405 and 166 mark is 86 and 27 record in 6 years at the 7th grade level, and 319 of 139 of 21 years in the 8th grade coach. Randy's 7th grade team won conference and regional titles in 1993. His 8th grade team won 10 conference championships, 9 regionals, reached the Elite Eight 3 times, and captured the 2000 IESA state champion. We just spoke with him. My 450 is actually quite under. But we'll get into that. So without further ado, I would love to introduce one of the greatest men that I know, Randy Harpster.
Well, thanks a lot, Chad. That's awfully nice of you to say that. I've always thought the same of you and your family as well. And it's people like you that make you want to become a teacher and want to become a coach. And it was so rewarding. I really enjoyed it. I was able to do it about 33 years. After all that happened, I went to the high school and I coached varsity basketball, JV and varsity basketball, and won an additional 35 games there or so. And we had a COVID year where we didn't get very many wins, but that was a real short season where I think we were really only played 4 weeks of basketball games. We had 2 weeks we had the COVID problem or whatever, and we weren't able to play. So, but yeah, it's a lot of fun, and coaching varsity golf was a really good time. I'd never really done that, and I did that for 5 years, and we won back-to-back state championships, and that was exciting because even to this day, those kids have something to really be proud of. There's never been a boys team in the history of Charleston High School to ever win a state championship at any sport, and those boys that I coached won back-to-back state championships, so that was a really cool experience. And the basketball at the high school was a lot of fun too. It was a whole new world, and we can talk more about that later if you'd like me to.
Yeah, absolutely. So real quick before we get into this, I just kind of wanted to share with you. So last night I posted on my Facebook and my Instagram account that I said tomorrow on MEDCast we sit down with Illinois Basketball Association Hall of Fame inductee Randy Harpster. We'll cover topics from his winning career, why it's important to have a coachable kid in school sports, work ethic, and much more. Coach Harpster is well known in the area, but his passion on the floor was second to none. What's something that you would like to hear us talk about? And I wanted to share this with you because 86 people either liked or loved this post. But in the comment section, I'm going to shout out to all you guys here. Langdon King says, "I love Coach Harp. Not too many like him left." Jordan Philpott says, "This is going to be a whole podcast about IU, and I'm here for it. Coach Harpster was hands down my favorite coach growing up. I learned so much from him, not just about basketball, but about being a great person." Steve Romine says, "Tell Harp I said hi. Not a half bad golfer, too." Whitney Floyd says, "Such a great coach and a person." Neely says, "Mr. Harpster is a great coach, PE and driver's ed teacher, one and only. Great teacher." Jenna Hayes says, "This is so awesome. My 8th grade year, the boys went undefeated in one state." Cody Hood, "Harp is the man. Such a great all-around person." Dana Matheny, "So well-deserving of such an honor. He served with integrity and respect." Tabitha Mason, "Still the same as he did 30 years ago." And then Ashley Walter says, "Love him." So obviously, I can sit here and tell you that, I will always be indebted to you because of some of the things that you obviously taught me, growing up. But I just wanted you to know, this is just on my Facebook post, that this many people think so highly of you. And, I want you to understand that the years that you put in, not only as a coach, but just as a person, were huge. And, the entire community appreciates you. So I just kind of want to share that with you.
Well, thank you so much. That made my day. And, sometimes as a coach and a teacher, you don't know. You don't know if you're having that much of an effect until something like this comes up, and it just really makes you feel like, hey, all that hard work is definitely worth it. And that's what it's all about. It's not about the wins and losses. It's what kind of people that they become later on. And everybody that you just mentioned there are very successful people. And that makes me feel better than anything else. They're having great lives, and they're going to continue to keep doing bigger and better things because I know all those people that you just said, and that's the best thing you can get from being a teacher is to have your students come back and say something like that. I don't, it's hard to even understand. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, like I said, I wanted to get that out there just to let how much you are appreciated, and it's so funny because we talk when we talk, when you bring up Randy Harpster, everybody that I know talks about how passionate you were, me and PE, I think it was seventh or eighth grade. We were just talking about this today. Josh Schmeiser and I won the pickleball tournament or championship over Jeremy Shores, and I can't remember who his partner was. And so we actually used to joke about that. It's I remember meeting Josh's significant other at the time, and we're like, did you know we were pickleball champions in Mr. Harpster's class back in the day? It's like peak male performance, ladies. But it's always kind of a joke. But obviously I was pretty overweight. I wasn't in shape. I didn't work out, none of that stuff. But man, I'll tell you, there was just something about you had the ability to motivate me to where when we come into PE, man, it's that was it was put up or shut up. We were going to work, we were going to put in the effort the entire time. I look forward to, and because of that, even all the way through high school, I look forward to the PE because it's I thoroughly enjoyed that kind of thing. But I just wanted to let you know that how much you do mean to the community. And I refer to you as Rockin' Randall because it's this man was passionate. I don't know if you have a stat sheet that tells you how many technicals you've probably gotten over the years, but I'm guessing it's up there, man, because it's we constantly talk now. It's seventh and eighth grade kids would be mind boggled if their basketball coach was running down the floor, screaming, getting into it like you were. It's but I mean, ultimately your record shows that it worked, right?
Well, I really appreciate. Yeah, I always felt like as a coach, if you don't care and you don't have passion and you don't work hard and you don't have good work ethic and you really, if you don't care, then your kids aren't going to care. And I always felt like if I could get my players to work half as hard as I did, I knew we were going to be pretty good. I wasn't a great athlete as a kid. I was an average athlete, maybe slightly above average. I had really good hand-eye coordination, but I didn't run very fast. I didn't jump very high. But I went out and I worked at it every single day. I practiced baseball every day of the year, Christmas Day twice. I would hit into a net. I would go out and take ground balls and fly balls. Even when it was snowing out, we would go out and work at baseball. And Terry McDivitt and I and Rick Beavers, that was an everyday thing for us, every day, all the way through our school years. We didn't have the video games. We kind of were the video games. I tell kids that in the driver's ed car, and they look at me like I'm crazy. But as a kid, I did real hunting and I did real fishing and played real sports, and I didn't have time for those video games. And to this day, I work 3 part-time jobs, and I just think it's important to be the athlete, be the person rather than be the video game, and be a real person, get out and experience real life. And technology has its place, but I think sometimes we need to go backwards instead of forwards and spend more time being a real person. And sports has always had that for me, and that's always been my release. And I tell you what, it's sports is wonderful. Without sports, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. Yes, I learned a lot in school. I had great teachers, but I also had tremendous coaches, and I think that made a big difference in my life as well. I played for tremendous coaches.
Yeah, and so you getting on the video game side of things is, I still to this day am not a video game guy. I would much rather, I'd much rather go out and build something, or work with my hands, play, shoot hoops with my kid, and, things like that. And I even struggle even like watching sports. Everyone's like, "Oh, you watching the game? You watching this?" I'm like, "Man, I watch college sports just because I think they're a little bit more interesting." I'm a Texas Longhorns fan. And I married into obviously the IU family, and which is kind of cool, right? Because you have kind of a standing history with IU, and it kind of holds a special place in your heart. So that's actually why I broke out my IU hat today, because I knew you were coming. So, um, but yeah, and the big thing is like, unfortunately, we're so set on video game stuff, and and just sitting there and kind of staying stationary, and again, technology, like you said, has a place, but unfortunately, I think it's kind of overruling, things like that we used to have of, kids nowadays. Man, I remember like riding my bicycle, and it's like you just had to be home when the lights went out. When the street lights came on, it's time to get home. And like you wouldn't dare do that nowadays. And kids just don't get out like they used to.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I hear the word anxiety a lot. I'm still teaching driver's ed part time, and I hear that in the car. And I'm like, we didn't have those issues when I was a kid. We were too busy having fun, being creative, making up our own games. We didn't have to have mom and dad standing there holding our hand all the time. We were the video game. And we went out and we made up things. And if we didn't have enough players, we called one side of the field out, or we played 3-on-3 football, or 2-on-2 football, or 2-on-2 basketball. We had three guys. We played a game to 21 or whatever. And it's just, I want to back up a little bit though. You were talking about Indiana basketball. That's really where I got my start. Steve Simons from Charleston. I didn't know when I first started teaching that I was ever going to coach basketball. And John Dively at the middle school interviewed me for my first teaching job. And he goes, "Hey, I'm going to have you teaching PE. I'm going to have you coaching baseball at the high school, junior varsity baseball at the high school, and I'm going to have you doing seventh grade basketball." I looked at him and gave him a funny look, and he goes, "What?" And I said, "Well, I'm not, basketball is my worst sport as a player, and I don't really know enough about basketball." He goes, "I'll get you with Coach Simons at the high school." And Coach Simons got me with Bob Knight, and Bob Knight met me at the door at the assembly hall, which is called at IU. In Indiana University, and he took me into his office and he started teaching me the true motion offense, not the ball screens, but the true motion offense with down screens and back screens and flare cuts and screen and re-screens and double staggers, elevator screens, and how to set your man up, and old school basketball that would still work today if anybody would try it. UConn tried it for a couple years in a row there, set 17 screens in a 25-second shot clock, and won back-to-back national championships. So I kind of thought, hey, maybe we're going to come back and start setting some screens away from the ball, but I'm still not seeing too much of it. I'm seeing more 5 out, nobody in, 4 out, 1 in. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I would love to coach today because it'd be really easy to defend this because everybody's got a cookie cutter offense. Everybody's doing the same thing. And I always told my kids, if we had East St. Louis, we could play 5 out and nobody in. But we're not that quick. We think we're quick until we see East St. Louis or we see some of these Chicago public league schools. And then we're going to have to get people open. We're going to have to find a way to get open shots for our shooters. And Charleston, we've had a lot of good shooters over the years. But if we can't get them open, it's hard to score. So Bob Knight taught me what I call the real offense, not just pick and roll and give and go. And give and go, they're still good offenses. I had those in my offense. I had screen and re-screens of the ball screen. We had that all in there, but we did a lot more. And I think there's still more out there that I would like to see a lot of young coaches do. But they look at me like I'm a dinosaur now when I try to start talking about that kind of thing. But basketball to me started with defense and rebounding. If you're not willing to play defense, you're not willing to play. And in my system when I coached, my best player didn't want to play defense, my best player, I made sure I got him a splinter picking kit. He could pick splinters out of his rear end. because you got to be able to play defense. Because if you don't, you're a 50% player. Last I looked on a test, 50% is an F on about any test.
Yes.
So I made it a point to make sure that all my players cared about each other. It wasn't a me, it was together, everyone achieves more. That's what the word team means. And now spelled backwards is won the game. So I wanted my kids I made sure my practices were always harder than any game they ever played. And I tried to find every mistake I could possibly find. And knowing that's not good enough was some of my favorite answers in practice sometimes, because I always felt like my kids were better than what they were playing. And at the end of the season, that usually kind of showed up, that we would always go out, we'd scrimmage against college kids, and we'd play. Try to get 5 to 6 college coaches to help me coach, and we ran stuff against them. They ran stuff against us, and we were constantly trying to make things difficult. And when my kids would see an 8th grader in an 8th grade game, it was a lot of fun. And that's something that I always look forward to, and with my teams. And my teams were tough. They dove on every loose ball. I said, I don't ever want to see a jump ball. I want to see the ball taken out of their hands. And anytime the ball is loose, it's ours. They're not allowed to get the ball. And we're going to chest every cutter on defense. We're going to help and recover. We're going to help the helper. We're going to shut off every baseline. No one is allowed to have an open shot during a basketball game. And when you teach kids that there's more to basketball than just shooting the ball, then you become really good. And the thing I'm the most proud of is my kids bought into that. So every kid on my team felt important because they could always rebound. They could always play defense. And, you brought up Langdon King. I had to get on Langdon King because he wouldn't shoot the ball sometimes. He was too unselfish. He cared about his teammates first and himself second. And he was always trying to make sure the team did well. And he had a perfect attitude. And he's not the only one. I had a lot of kids like that. But when you said Langdon King, that's the first thing I thought of when I thought of him. He's an ultimate team player. And I think a lot of parents sitting in the stands today are worried about how many shots their kid can get up, how many points their kid can score, instead of worrying about the end of the game, what that team score looks like. And there were times I threatened to take individual scoring back then out of the newspaper, and then towards the end of my career, the online stuff. Just get rid of that and worry about how the team does and what did you do to help the team. It's not just about the scoring. Only one person can lead the team in scoring every game, unless you have a tie. But there's more to it. There's how many charges did you take? How many deflections did you get? How many 50-50 balls did you get to? There's so much more to the game of basketball than just scoring points individually. Because an assist is just as important as a basket. Because without the assist, you don't get the basket.
I agree.
Because you're playing 1-on-5 a lot of times. And that kind of team usually loses a lot of games.
And obviously points are impressive, but man, when you can see players coming out with, double doubles, triple doubles, it shows their ability to just play both sides of the ball. And when we talk about, like you're talking about, defense, you can't, the one thing that you can never count on is guaranteed shots, right? You can't guarantee that you're going to go out there today and you're going to shoot 100%. But what I can guarantee you, that if you go out there and give 100% and you play the D and really, do what you're supposed to be doing, you can limit the number of points they have. So maybe when we're not knocking down them shots and we're not getting the points that we're hoping, the best thing we can do is limit their ability to score. And just flat out wear them out. It's basketball. I think is one of the most underestimated sports when it comes to the physicality of what it takes to be a good basketball player.
You're exactly right. And that's the point I always tried to make. Everybody has an important role. And even the kid that's on the third string needs to understand every time we win, it's his fault. It's his fault we won the game because he's working hard every day in practice. And I always tried to have a B game for every single game. Every time we went to T-Town, I wanted a B game. Every time we went to Effingham, Mattoon, I always asked for a B game, whether it's a 15-minute continuous clock or we have a special day for it. But I felt like winning comes from your third string just as much as it does from your best player. I always told my kids, we don't have a star on this team. We don't have a superstar because there's enough stars in the sky. We don't need a star. We need a team. And that was kind of the message I tried to send. And I do have a funny story. I remember one time I went to Bruce Weber's clinic and Tom Izzo was a guest speaker. And he saw me in the hallway. He grabs me by my arm and he goes, "Hey, you're Coach Harpster, right, from Charleston?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm Tom Izzo." And I said, "I know who you are." I mean, he's one of the most greatest coaches in basketball history. And he says, "Hey, I got to ask you a question about this TJ Bell kid you got."
TJ.
And he goes, "I hear you're telling everybody he's the best prospect in Illinois in 8th grade." And I said, "Well," I said, "he can drop, step, and dunk. He can handle the ball. He can play point guard. He's 6'4", and his mom is 6'5", and his real dad is 6'10". And I said, "You tell me." He goes, "We're going to be talking a lot." And he goes, "I got to ask you one other question. Why is he only scoring about 15 points a game?" And I said, "Well, have you ever heard of a guy named Michael Jordan?" And he looked at me like, this stupid 8th grade coach. And he kind of looks at me. I said, "Well, if Dean Smith can hold Michael Jordan under 20 points a game, then I can hold TJ Bell under 20 points a game." And he started laughing. He goes, "I get it. You make him play as a team." And I said, "We have to, because we get to the state tournament, they're going to double and triple team TJ, and then we got to have other guys score." But the funny part about that year is in 8th grade, we were 6'2", 6'4", 6'7". Colin Ferguson was 6'7". He ended up playing at SEMO, Southeast Missouri Division I. TJ played at Indiana State. And then I had Colin Ferguson and Aaron Bentz and Jordan Hayes. And we had a great team that year. But it wasn't just TJ Bell, or I wouldn't remember all those other guys that was playing too. And we had a great second string that year, great third string that year. They would have started on a lot of teams I ever coached. And I'd tell you their names too, but I might accidentally leave somebody out, and I don't want to do that. But yeah, it's about the team. It really is. And back then, it seemed like back then the parents would paint their faces and they would get behind every player on the team. Somebody'd bring ice for the team. Somebody'd bring Gatorade. Somebody'd do this. Somebody'd do that. It's like everybody got behind the whole team and they cheered for every kid. And now I go to some games and it's just almost like a ghost town. And it's not everywhere, but you go to T-Town, you'll still see that team attitude out of them. And I'm hoping that we can get back to that, around here a little bit more as well. And I think we're making a lot of moves in the right direction. And we have the last 5 years. I'm seeing things improving and getting better. And hopefully we get a little old school back. Maybe I think might see some differences, but I may be dreaming. I don't know. We'll see.
No, and I definitely agree, because I remember, even whenever I got out of high school, but middle school, high school, like I couldn't tell you the amount of miles that I put on my vehicle driving to games. We went to and back then, I don't know if they still do. We had we had the fan bus. So they would bring us, we could load up on a school bus and we'd pack that thing. And there was to the point where parents were driving their kids separate to the games and stuff. And I mean, we were just loud and we just, and it didn't matter. I still remember even other sports. I remember when the high school went to the Elite Eight in football. We had good buddies of mine. Like Trey Ryan, Eric Gentry. Those guys were all down there. Jamel and Jamario Johnson. Those guys.
Oh.
Those dudes were just athletes, right? And, but I remember driving down with a full car to, I think it was Marion, where we went down for the Elite Eight, and that wasn't nothing. We followed Coach Miller's girls basketball team, all over the place, and then we had just phenomenal players, but it just showed they appreciated the support, because it's it kind of, at the end of the day, it's a cool thing to play the sports, but it's even better when you know that you have a community behind you, and it just kind of makes you want to push yourself and just be that much better, so.
Yeah, that's a great point. I agree with you 100%.
So we'll kind of backtrack just a little bit. I wrote down a couple of things, just reminders. So the big thing that we were trying to do with the podcast is I just want to have conversations of friends, friend to friend, like you and I would have at the school, if I stopped in to visit, whatever it may be, or if I see you at Walmart, I I still remember one day I was actually going to Walmart for something, and I'd seen you, and my wife like calls me like an hour later, and she's like, "Are you okay? Like you were just going to Walmart for like one thing." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I ran into Coach Harpster." It's like, and you'll always be like, we're kind of talking about that. It's like you'll always be coach, right? Like I will always call you coach. Mr. Miller will always be coach. The other day, I did some stuff with the business for the ROEs, and um, uh, Coach Calandrilla is obviously so. Somebody's like, "You're Coach Calandrilla." I'm like, "Oh, you mean Coach Cal?" Like, what do you mean? Like, who's Jerry Calandrilla? I don't know that guy. Like, I know Coach Cal. And I told him that. It's like, you will always be Coach Cal. Like, you will always be coach. Like, it's just kind of one of those things. It's like that's just in my mind, but it's crazy to me because like you're obviously way more than just a coach. Like I mean, you're a friend of mine. But just to kind of go back, so a couple of questions or things that we're trying to hit on was like just kind of let everybody know, kind of, did you grow up here in Charleston? Your current family, and are they around here, like sports and stuff that you do, things like that with those guys?
Yeah, I'm proud to say that I was born here in 1964. I'm 61 years old. Other than 2.5 years of playing baseball in Nashville, Tennessee, and trying to play professional baseball and kept getting cut everywhere I went. But I've been here the whole time pretty much. Love growing up in Charleston. And there's so many more things to do here than what everybody says. We one time in a health class wrote down 101 things you can do in Charleston for young kids. And yes, we've lost some things, and some of that's adults' faults. And I'm an adult saying that, where we've lost a bowling alley, we've lost a teen center, we've lost arcades, we've lost several things, over the years. And it'd be nice if we had a nice YMCA for kids and things like that. We need to find more things for kids. I agree with that, but there are a lot of things you can do rather than just sit around and complain about what you can't do. And you can still go hunting, you can still go fishing, you can go to parks, you can take walks, you can go hiking. There's a lot of things kids can do that yeah, if they're sitting in front of a video game and that's all they do, that's all they got then. But you can get out and find things to do that are healthy and good for you. Like I liked what you were saying about riding bicycles. That's all we did as kids. We rode everywhere. And I know times have changed and you got to be more careful because there are some tough situations out there. But even with that being said, there's probably places you could still go and be pretty safe, especially if you're with them, if you're riding with them and stuff and going out and spending time with your kids. And that's a good thing too. But yeah, I grew up here, loved every minute of it. I played all sports growing up, and just great experience here living here in Charleston. And I'm fortunate. I've been married for 32, almost 33 years to Karen, and then my daughter Hannah. Very proud of her. She just completed 4 years of playing college golf at Millikan, and now she's a golf coach at Millikan, and she just completed her RN, and she's now working in OR at Decatur Memorial. So my wife did something right.
That's awesome.
No, but hopefully we both helped her a little bit. But I'm really proud of her, and she played every sport. She played 5 sports in middle school and went to state in every sport. And golf ended up being probably her best sport, along with softball. And she was an okay basketball player too, but she had a great end track. She's still up on the board, I'm proud to say, at the Charleston Middle School in a 4x2 relay. The year they beat East St. Louis, that was kind of cool to watch that. I shook my head when she went to the start line and all that, and they went up there to run that relay. I looked at my wife. I said, "This probably isn't going to be very good." And we beat East St. Louis. That was pretty cool. But no, I've had a fun time watching over 10,000 students of mine go on to have really successful lives and careers. And now I've had over 1,000 driver's ed kids, which is neat, drive with me. So I really think that's a cool thing too. And I'm still enjoying that. And I'm on the radio now doing 92.1 The Axe for boys varsity basketball games.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm doing that. I do all the color commentary with Ramin Carbassian, and then we fill in with Rob Calhoun and Lane Blickham. Will fill in for one of us if we're not there. And so I love working with all three of those guys. They're amazing. They do a great job, and I love working with Coach Oakley and driver's ed and Coach Cable, and just a lot of fun. It keeps me young to be able to still get out and do a lot of things. And I work for the tech department. Kyle Perry is an amazing tech guy, along with Brian Doty and just Chuck and our other guy, Devondre, who's a track coach at the high school, and
Nice.
just great people. And they run a tremendous department. I'll tell you what, they blow me away every day. And, with their ability to make this school run with the technology of over 3,000 computers, and working for central office, leadership starts at the top. Chad Burgett's amazing.
Oh, Chad.
And just the whole time. I don't want to leave anybody out, so I better not go through too many more names. But I'll tell you what, it's a great community. And I like what you said about community. You were talking about Jeff Miller earlier. What a great coach and even better person. I taught driver's ed with him, and boy, that guy cared.
Yes.
And he held kids accountable, and he had that philosophy: without discipline, learning cannot take place. And he held the kids accountable and knew that they could do better than what they could do. And man, they won a lot of ball games. When he lost a ball game, it was a big deal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they were very good.
Great teams.
Yes.
And it was just one team after another team after another team. But he's an even better person.
Oh, by far. And that's one thing, like, I know maybe this sounds crazy, maybe it's just my thoughts, but like people like yourself and Jeff Miller and, I will say without a single bit of doubt, you guys could call me at 3:00 in the morning and I would drop everything I had going on to help you guys, because I know that you do the same. Like, that's just the kind of people that you guys are. Like, I will never, I've been in Walmart a few times and like looked around and like, oh no, that's so-and-so. And you kind of hide behind that clothes rack. Like, with you guys, it's 100%. It's like, oh, there's Randy Harpster, there's Jeff Miller, so it's like, and I'm going to you guys because it's like, hey, I'm going to talk to you, because every conversation is good, but like, you guys just have, let's call it what it is. You guys have heart, like you guys are you're good people. And I think that's one of the reasons why you guys are so successful is you truly are just good people at the base of everything. And that transpires out to, the kids that you've coached, the kids that you've taught, and you just said it the best that I've ever heard. Like, leadership starts at the top, and that's with everything, right? Like, that's no different than, my kid succeeding, and being a good kid starts with me being a good example for him. And truly to sit there and think about how many kids over the years maybe didn't have that figure and you were that person to them, or, so like just to think about the ability that you're, the effect that you have on people just by being a good person and just being who you guys are, man. And like, that's a huge statement about both of you guys for sure.
Well, that's awfully nice of you to say that, but everybody that you just mentioned thinks the same thing about you the same way. And you're that person, and I have a great deal of respect for our police. I think they're amazing. They do a tremendous job. And without leadership like you guys provide, this town would really be in trouble. And there's been times over the last 20, 30 years where things have started to go south a little bit, and our police stepped in and did a tremendous job of cleaning up this town and making it better. And is it perfect? No town is. But the effort that you guys put into it and the job you guys do is very much appreciated by me, and all my friends think the same thing. And we appreciate you guys and what you do and the kind of person you are, Chad, because you're an amazing person, and everybody feels the same way about you.
Well, I greatly appreciate that. I mean, we were just talking the other day. I recently lost a really good friend of mine, and we were just kind of talking about like just the kind of person he was, and Terry was that guy that like fully believed you leave place better than where you found it, right? And I feel like he did that with the world, and that's my goal. Like that's 100% my goal is to leave this world better than where I found it, and whatever that takes, we talked about skill and work ethic and stuff like that. It's like, you said earlier, you said I may not, or I wasn't the best at this, but I was out there working every day, and I'm a firm believer in work ethic can beat natural talent. It's better to me to have, less talent with more work ethic than be overly talented and no work ethic. It's only going to get you so far. Basically, talent only gets you so far, right? So, to be in that mindset of like every day is an opportunity to get up and just try to be a better person, try to make the world a better place. Um, I'm fortunate to have mentors like yourself over the years that, kind of, led me that way. And I wasn't always the greatest person in the world. Don't let me sit here in front of this camera and lie to you. Like, I spoke at the Rise and Shine the other day. And I was like, I spent my last week of my senior year, in Todd Villardo's office as the principal. And, it was like, yeah, I mean, I wasn't bad. Like I didn't beat people up or anything, but I had the problem of being the class clown, and so it not everyone appreciated my humor as much as I appreciated my humor. But but yeah, you're just again, it's just one of those things. It's like I'm fortunate enough to have mentors in my life that have made me the person that I am, and truly, without a doubt, not just because you're sitting here, I would tell anybody this. Um, you were one of those people, and Jordan Philpott, who was, my last podcast guest, you heard on his, Facebook post with it, like he's that way, he feels the same way about you and your ability to lead and just be a good example. So.
Well, that's, a lot of people think in coaching, you gotta demean kids, you gotta talk down to them, you gotta use a lot of cuss words and things like that. And I, I don't think that's necessary. I think you got to call them out. You got to tell them, hey, you're better than that. That baseline kicked your butt. I never told a kid he was terrible, he was awful, anything like that. But I pointed out things they've got to do better. And if we don't do that better, we're not going to win. And most kids really want to win. And if you can get them to do it right, you got a better chance of winning. Are you always going to win? No. But the more things you can get a kid to believe in themselves and believe they can do it, then to me, that's what helped my career a lot is getting kids to buy in that, hey, you can do this. You're better than the effort you're giving. And I know you can do it. And let's prove to the world you can, and let's not back down from it. Let's fight fears. Let's fight anxiety. Let's go get it. Let's not back down and run and hide from it and make excuses and blame other people. Let's not blame the rest. Let's look at ourselves first, and let's not point fingers at other people on the team, because if you do that, you got three fingers coming back at you. When you point that first finger out, that index finger, then you got three more coming back at you. So let's take care of yourself first, and then we can work on the team.
Yeah, absolutely. So just kind of a couple things, the sports and stuff that you obviously played. So obviously basketball, golf, baseball. I didn't know until we just talked a little bit before this, like, it sounds like maybe baseball was probably your lead sport. And then, obviously I know you're a very good golf player. And one of the guys in the Facebook comments, Steve, even said he's like pretty good golfer, So,
well, I play a lot. I'm probably the worst player in the world that plays golf as much as I do, and I should be a lot better than what I am. I got down to a 3 handicap at one time, but that's elevated a lot. It's probably more like an 8 or a 10 now. I don't know, but I have some good days and some bad days on that golf course. But I love it. I have a passion for it. I'm always trying to get better, and even at 61, I still think my best days are ahead. I'm probably fooling myself, but if I can convince myself I am getting better, then hopefully I'll at least not fall off the face of the earth as soon as I would have if I didn't believe that. So I've always believed that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to give it my best effort, and I want my kids to, and keep saying but I mean that for our kids. Because if I don't do it, how can I expect kids to do it? So that's why I don't want to use the word I a lot, because when coaching, I always said we. But um, again, you have to show that you're going to have that attitude if you expect your kids to have that kind of attitude. So I've always thought I was better than what I was at every sport I played, I'm sure, because if you expect a little, like I tell my drivers in the driver's ed car, I don't want you to be an average driver. I don't want you to be a good driver. I don't want you to be a great driver. I want you to be an exceptional driver. I want you to be the best driver on the road. I want you to be the best, because then if something happens, at least I know that you tried to be your best, not just a half effort, because a half effort can get you hurt in a car or whatever it is you're dealing with. Half efforts don't work in real life, in real world, in video game. You can restart it. In real life, sometimes you don't get that opportunity. So I think that's an important lesson just as a life skill, that sometimes we settle as humans, and settling will get you beat a lot.
Yeah.
In life and in real world experiences.
And so obviously you said earlier basketball was like your probably like least or your lowest sport, but you were a pretty good baseball player. Is that what I kind of
Yeah,
get?
that was my best sport. Yeah, I played 4 years of college baseball on a scholarship. I had a contract offered to me out of high school by Pittsburgh, by the Pirates. Gene Baker, a scout from Kankakee, came to watch another kid pitch, and I had a really good day that day at Eastern. And he went up to Coach Royer, my coach, and asked if I would have an interest in getting drafted as a late round draft pick. Back then there was like 40 rounds. Now there's not anywhere near that. So I'd have been like one of the last round pick guys. And when they asked me about it and asked me how important a college degree was, I said, well, nobody in my family has a college degree. So I would like to go to college and get a college degree, because they told me that if they kept me, I could get cut that summer if I didn't produce, and I would lose out on 4 years of college. And they told me I was going to get a scholarship, which I did, and I got to play free for 4 years in college because of baseball. Now they get NIL money and get millions. Back then, man, if you got a full ride scholarship, that was a pretty good deal. So, and then after my senior year in college, I was supposed to get drafted by the California Angels, and the scout got fired. So I didn't get drafted. So I went down to a instructional league camp, kind of clinic camp. It was a clinic camp's what it was, down in Florida. And then I got cut with the Angels, and I tried, to make it, and didn't work out. But it ended up being the best thing that could ever happen to me, because I've had a great career as being around all of these people, young people, and all the adults, and all of, you were talking about mentors. I had a lot of mentors. I wouldn't even know where to start. Every one of my coaches made a difference in my life. And I had a lot of different coaches, but yeah, baseball, I don't know. I just had a real passion. It's kind of funny. People ask me, what's your favorite sport? Well, my favorite sport to watch is football. My favorite sport to coach was basketball. My best sport as an athlete was baseball. My favorite sport to play now is golf. So I'm all over the place. I love going out and watching stock car races.
Yeah.
With there's tremendous talent out there at the Charleston Speedway. It's crazy how good all those racers are. I wouldn't want to start singling them out too much, but people always ask who's the best drivers you've ever had in driver's ed. I said, well, that's pretty easy. All those race cars I've had, kids that I've had. I don't want to mention them all because I might leave one of them out, but just this town's full of talent. It's just, what are we going to do with that talent, and how are we going to put it all together? And sometimes being a good athlete, you have to make a lot of sacrifices, whether you're a race car driver or you're a golfer or whatever it is. It's a big sacrifice. And when I look back at my very best teams, they also were the hardest workers. And it wasn't always the most talented team. Sometimes it's the kids that put the extra time in when nobody's looking.
Yeah.
If you're just counting on your season to make you good, it's not going to happen unless you're just a freak athlete. You're going to have to work. We got a kid at Charleston High School right now, Tyler Oakley. He's on pace to be the all-time leading scorer in the history of Charleston basketball. I went in there to work out on Christmas Day at high school, and he was in there shooting baskets.
That's awesome.
And it's commitment, it's work, it's effort, and he didn't make excuses. He just goes out and does it every day. And so if it's something that's that important to you, then you've got to put the time in. And I've always said, if you want to be good at eating, you got to practice eating. You got to eat a lot. And that's probably one of my most talented things. I'm a pretty good eater.
Oh, I've gotten into that over the years. Well, and that's one of those things too. Is like, I'm big into kind of like so I take over. I'm the active shooter instructor for the CPD, and we call it a CQB instructor. So it's like close quarters battle. So it's like basically clearing the house, in a certain way, and just trying to be. It's kind of like hostage rescues type stuff, things like that. And like I have a huge passion for that. And I always talk about it, it's like I'm not the best at this, but I promise you're not going to outwork me. Like at the end of the day, I mean, I've set up targets here. My wife loves this, by the way. I set up targets here in the house, and I'll like go through and I'll clear my room, clear the rooms of the house. And I've been through this house a million times, but on shift, we'll take some of the guys from work and we'll go down and we'll clear the old hospital there over there on 18th Street. And, we're just constantly striving to be better. And the cool thing is seeing guys like when you have that ability or when you have something that you're that passionate about, it's contagious. I'm a firm believer in like, we both know, Albert Atkins is obviously our new resource officer, but man, when Albert took the job at the school, he's like, man, I want to train more with you. I want to train this stuff. I want to get better at this stuff because he actually understands that there's a responsibility as a school resource officer to protect the children. And he wants to do that to his absolute best ability. And, when we got to the instructor side of things, like, my brother told me years ago, he said, anybody can teach or anybody can be an instructor, but not everybody is a teacher. You got to be passionate about the topics that you're teaching to truly teach people, the things that you're wanting to show them. And I've always said it's like everybody that I've ever taught anything to, I hope that they got as much from it that they can, but B, I hope that I instilled the same passion that I have into them and make them want to go out and get better and better. And I hope one day you're better at this than I am, and like, that's just one of those things. It's like, that like never quit, put in the effort, wake up every day, put your best foot forward, is a contagious attitude. And I think obviously it reflects not only just in life, but like, with your successes too, that you've had obviously on and off the court and, and just overall, you've always been that person of like, I'm going to work. Like there's no person. I mean, you're retired and you're working. I think you work now more retired than you did when you were actually working. It's like, my wife's like, yeah, Randy Harpster came in today and he was delivering laptops to us. I'm like, he's what? Like, Harpster's not an IT guy. She's like, no, he just drives around and delivers the computers and takes him here and takes him there. And he does all this stuff. And she's like, oh, we love him out here. And I'm like, and then kind of find out it's like, oh, he's got like 3 other jobs too. Like, and I truly believe that's one of the reasons why, you what 61,
61, yeah.
Like you couldn't tell, like, you still have that pep in your step, like you still, you're in decent health from what I see, obviously I don't know. But I mean, you're in good health, you're good spirits, you're always, and I'm a firm believer in being healthy and being on the go like you are, creates that positive mindset too, and you always have a positive attitude, it seems like.
Yeah, I keep steps on my phone and I average about 15,000 steps a day. And a lot of that's through my job. And then also, walking my dog 3 or 4 times a day and getting out and still lifting weights. I don't lift heavy anymore. I just lift light weights, enjoy that still and just staying active. And, it's funny you mentioned that. I've had a lot of people ask me, are you working more now than you? I said, it may seem like it, but you couldn't tell what I was doing behind what really happened. I used to go in at 6:30 in the morning, Jeff Miller and I, and we would drive till school starts with kids. And then he would teach class in the morning and I would drive in the morning. Then in the afternoon, I would drive or teach the class and he would drive. And then we'd get on a school bus and go to Lincoln at 3:00 and get back at midnight. So we put a lot of 15-hour days in as a teacher and a coach. And I think a lot of people think, you just go in the classroom and start teaching at at 9 o'clock or 8:30 or whatever, and then you're done at 3 o'clock. But teachers put a lot of time in, and coaches, it's crazy. I mean, Big Al's Lemon Shake-Ups, the owner of that, Al Credemeyer, and I one time, he figured up that I was making $1.25 an hour coaching seventh grade boys basketball back in the day when I had a stipend of $1,500 or $2,000, whatever it was back then to coach. Um, Now it's a lot better than that now. I mean, being a varsity coach, you get a lot more than that now or whatever. But back then, but even then, even now, it's a lot of effort. I mean, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I would get out a notebook, and when I woke up, and start writing plays down or start questioning myself, why did that kid not get a play more? Or why did that kid play too much? Or, you're always trying to make it fair to every kid on your team. Like, hey, I didn't give that kid as many minutes as he should have had, or seconds, or I got to find seconds and minutes for that kid, or whatever. So as a teacher and a coach, it wasn't unusual to spend 80 hours in a week coaching and teaching, when you combine the two together. Now I'm working 30 to 40 hours a week, and sometimes I'll go 50 or 60, and sometimes I go down to 20 or 30. Just depends on what's going on that week. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And like you said, it keeps you young. Yeah. I mean, I could sit around in a rocking chair and not do anything, or I can get out and hopefully still make a difference and maybe help one kid somewhere along the line. You just never know when you're helping that kid. Like 20 years ago, if you'd asked me if I helped Chad Schwenke out any, the answer had probably been no. And now he's coming back and telling me, hey, you made PE competitive, you made it fun. You had a lot of different tournaments. Had rookie leagues, advanced leagues, intermediate leagues. Every kid felt important. And, it's like, that's what it's all about is hopefully I say one thing, or I did one thing that made a difference and helped that kid somewhere along the line, because people did that for me. A lot of people did that for me. And that's what it's all about.
I would definitely say, as far as that goes, like, one of the biggest things that you did for me as a student was I never felt like I was like just a number. I never felt like I was just another kid in class. Like, you always took the effort in, like, even when I had like bad days, where it's like, man, like, you didn't do nothing. Like, you were lazy. Like, what are you doing? Like, you'd come up back, hey man, you got to do better than this. Like, what's up? Like, and so it's like the fact that whenever I did slack off, you would call me on it. But it showed me that you were paying attention to me enough that you're like, hey, listen, like, you're better than this. And like, you always kind of like tried to push, but I feel like, obviously we're getting older, so trying to remember everybody's names and stuff now, but I don't think that there's a doubt in my mind that you could probably, when you were teaching or coaching, could tell you every single student that you had that walked through your door. And I think that's huge, right? Because especially, in our school system, so often we see kids that kind of get like lost in the system, just another kid just going through the motions, just there to be there, don't really want to be there, kind of thing. And then for somebody like yourself, or, and teachers, I will always say this: teachers are the most underpaid and like overlooked position in the entire country. I mean, ultimately, you're responsible for building our youth. Like, you are responsible for where the country goes, where this world goes from here, and it starts by how we raise them and how we teach. How we teach our younger generation. So the fact that you were that guy, that whenever I would come in there, like, I wasn't just a student. I was Chad Schwenke. I was your fourth hour PE class or whatever it meant. Like, you knew who I was and would have a conversation with me. And I think that was huge to me. I felt like I actually belonged there. And that, ultimately that you wanted me there. So like, that was huge.
Yeah, that's another thing. I lost my mom and my dad I lost my dad to cancer on May 1st, and I lost my mom May 2nd to a car accident, or a car hit by a car. I'm not going to say accident, probably shouldn't say that, but car went through a building and killed my mom, Rebecca Oddfellow. But without such good parenting and my grandfather and all the support I had from home, there's no way I would have the attitude that I have today, and I've had, because my parents wouldn't have let me treat people bad, been dishonest, and not fair and things like that. My mom and dad would never let that happen. And they would have called me out on it. And they did. I mean, there were times that when I was growing up that I made some bad decisions and bad choices, and I didn't get away with it. And I got held accountable. And so um, there's no way I was ever going to play favorites. Um, I cared about every kid, and because every kid's important, and it doesn't matter, just because you're the best athlete or you're the best musician or whatever. It's let's see what kind of person you can become, and then you'll also get better at what you do as a musician or as an athlete or whatever, art student, whatever it is. And that helps a lot when you have good parental guidance and help. And I was fortunate that way, but can't say enough good things about the teachers I had, the coaches I had. And I think it's and parents need to take a good hard look in the mirror. How am I, you want your kid to act a certain way, and you got to hold them to that standard. And you can't just be their best friend. You got to use the word no, and that's not good enough. And I care about you, and I expect better, and it'll pay off for you in the end.
Yeah, and I feel like I've seen a trend, especially getting into law enforcement, that just over the last several years here, we're kind of losing that trend. And I'm not talking ill about parents and stuff like that, but I'm seeing more and more kids that are just kind of going down a wrong path, and then when you dig into it, you find out like mom and dad are not in either in their life or they're just not a good influence for them, and we a lot of times I'm very much yes sir, yes ma'am, like when I see people. And I've had several people like, don't call me ma'am. I'm like, oh no, listen, I have to, because my mom will beat me if I don't call you ma'am. Like, we go into, I've literally stopped in for dinner at MEDCast the other day, and the guy's mopping the floor, and like in my mind I'm like, man, if my mom was here, she would destroy me for walking on this man's like freshly mopped floor. Like, it was like a respect thing to me. Like, you just didn't do that. And, I feel like I'm seeing it more and more as a police officer, and even just with the way the world's going, we're having more and more youth having problems. Juveniles are probably one of the biggest issues that we have in law enforcement, of just doing things. And it all comes down to, we just didn't have good parenting, or parents that are jumping in and they're trying to be good parents years later after we've already went down this road. And I think there's a lot to be said about parents who start being parents and not friends right out of the gate. There's a difference, right? Like, there's 100%, like my kiddo. I would do anything in the entire world for him, and he knows that. And like, I'm going to I'm going to be there on the soft side of things where I need to be, but we're also going to be stern at the same time. And I will tell you, I think in my entire life, or since being in Brady's life, I think I've maybe had to raise my voice at him like once or twice. I've never had to, like, never put a hand on him, none of that stuff. And I just, hey, and give him that kind of like deep tone. And he's like, oh, and this was when he was younger, and nowadays, I mean, I literally just have to say, hey, buddy, do this. Okay, sounds good, and we were actually, told by several people, one of the Charleston firemen that I know the other day at the hospital, he goes, hey, I just want to let you know, I met that kid, and like, you guys are doing a great job, like, he's such a good kid, like very well mannered, respected. It's like, as a parent, you can never tell me anything better than that. Like, I love hearing this. Like, my kid is doing the things that like I was taught to do, that my parents taught me to do, be respectful, and things that we look for. So, um, I think that's a big thing. And relating back to the coaching side of things, like what you're doing, and what you did over the years of, um, you always taught the like core values that were important to you, and the people that were in your life respected that, and kind of it showed, and it was kind of a huge thing. So, sorry, I went on a
Thank you
tangent.
for saying that.
Yeah, well, I would tell you one thing on here: we only speak the truth, So, um, so let's see a couple other things. do you know, as far as getting into the basketball stuff, do you know your win or loss record? Like, what's your?
I think it's around 485 wins, and whatever it says on those losses, you can add about 15 more to those.
I'll delete
So
15 for
whatever that was. I can't remember the exact number, but
wow.
yeah, too many losses and not enough wins. It's never enough, but you strive for those wins, and one of the best seasons I ever had. We did have a losing season. I think in 50 some years of coaching the three different sports, I had two losing seasons as a coach, but one in particular, those kids, one of the best compliments I ever got was from Coach Lawrence. Bob Lawrence says, "Hey, you know what? I'm watching your kids play. They're setting good screens. They're moving the ball really well. They're cutting hard. They're changing speeds on they're doing everything right fundamentally. They're bounce passing. They're ball faking, and it looks like you guys are playing hard defensively. You're diving on the floor. You're taking charges. You're boxing out." He goes, "But then I look up the score and you're down 20 points. Or you're down 30 points." And he goes, "It seems like you're playing better than what the score indicates up there." And I said, "Well, thank you. That's a really good compliment because we're losing by 20 or 30 points." And I go, "I don't know whether to take that as a compliment or an insult, but I knew what he meant. And I appreciated that." But those kids every day in practice, they were all about the same. They all played about the same in the year. A lot of them got about pretty similar playing time, but we didn't get that separation. Like, here's my best five, here's my next best. We didn't get that. But I'll tell you what, they were the most pleasant group of kids to coach. The parents were amazing. They got behind the team and they were proud of every win we had. And ended up being, and the thing of it is, we started out not winning anything. And by the end of the year, we ended up winning like 7 out of our last 8 games or 9 games, and won a regional game that year, and almost pulled off an upset in the regional championship game. We ended up getting beat by a few points in a game we probably had no business being in, but my kids believed they could win, and it almost happened.
That's awesome.
So I was more surprised than they were. I think I didn't let them know that, but I remember that game going, "How are we still in this game? We should not be playing with these guys. They're better than us, a lot better than us."
That's so cool.
But yeah, that's a neat feeling.
So on that, obviously, so you've coached at different levels of, kind of the younger to, high school level. Obviously you did some instructor stuff with like major league side of things. So, I mean, you've had a variety of people that you've, taught. What are some of the difficulties that come with older age groups? It's like, I feel like middle school tends to be kind of that age where we're getting the fundamentals right. We're getting kind of like starting to get that good work ethic in there. We're not just a bunch of kids running around throwing a ball, and like we've started to figure the game out. But then I also feel like now we're starting to build the egos. We're starting to build that, like, that kind of thing. So I'm just curious, like, what are the major difficulties that you see with coaching older kids compared to, some of the middle school stuff?
Well, let me kind of start on a scale. I first started out in 7th grade. First year I coached basketball, I had 72 kids try out for 15 spots. And I cut a lot of people. I cut a couple of cousins, I cut some friends, some families, and just different things like that. And that's a tough year. 7th grade, they're just trying to learn. It's a fundamental year. You have to get your fundamentals down, or it's never going to work for you when you get older. And it's a hard fundamental year. 7th grade coaches, my hat goes off to you guys, because that's a very difficult age to coach. 8th grade is the garden spot because it's the biggest show in town. 8th grade I did for 23 years, and the parents kind of get the feel like, "Hey, my kid's not quite as good as I thought he was in 7th grade." Even watching them struggle in a B game or something, they're like, "Oh, I thought my kid was the best," but they kind of start to get it. And in 8th grade, you have a lot of B games. It's a lot of fun. 8th grade is the best basketball coaching job in the district, in my opinion. I coach JV at the high school. That's a fun time too, but they're always fighting for that varsity spot. Or, why am I playing JV? Why aren't I playing varsity? They're starting to get jobs. They're getting girlfriends. So now as a coach, you're fighting jobs. You're fighting girlfriends. You're fighting multiple sports, which it wasn't a fight for me on multiple sports, because I encouraged my kids to play every sport, because a good friend of mine, Kevin Seitzer, played for the Royals and the Indians and was the hitting coach for the Braves for a long time. And now he's with the Seattle Mariners. He said, my kid, he goes, I grew up, he goes, I was a quarterback in football. He goes, I competed year round. I wasn't a specialization athlete. And he goes, none of the major league players are specialization athletes. Almost every single major league baseball players, even to this day, are three sport athletes. And these advisors and these people that are travel coach things and stuff, they try to make you think that, hey, you just got to play one sport. That's the worst thing you can do for a kid. Just play one sport. I kind of became that specialization athlete. And I'm saying that from 2 points. I'm saying it from me as an athlete, and I'm saying it for the truth as it really is today. In talking to major league athletes, talking to NBA players, and those guys were 3 and sometimes 4 sport athletes. He said, football made me tougher, basketball made me quicker, and baseball made my hand-eye coordination better. And I competed year-round, where specialization athletes gets in a big game and they only play one sport, and the game is for the regional championship. All of a sudden, the pressure is hard to take when you're a one-sport athlete. When you've done it all year round, it's like, hey, I did it in football, I did it in basketball, and guess what season it is now? It's baseball. Game on. Game on the line, I want the bat in my hand. Game on the line, I want the ground ball hit to me. And so anyway, to keep going on this, then you go up to when you get to be a junior and senior at the varsity level, then it becomes I'm playing for a scholarship. I'm trying to get into the best college I can get into. I want to play college sports. And that becomes a fight too, because then it becomes, that's where the me, or the I comes in. It's all about me. And then you lose a little bit of that team concept sometimes. So you're exactly right. Looking back on it, it was harder to coach at the varsity level, especially juniors, seniors, than it was in 8th grade. 7th grade, getting started's tough. Finishing's tough. The ones in between are a little bit easier. The ages are a little easier, actually.
Yeah. Well, that seems to be kind of the thing too, is, like Britt and I talk, obviously we're big basketball fans, and we've had the conversations like, 7th grade is almost like you're building the foundation for that house, right?
Yeah.
And like, and then kind of where your house ends up from there, depends on the following years. And, you can kind of take and learn, you can build as an athlete, but, a lot of times we see so many, especially at the high school level, of like, well, I should be playing, I should be doing this, I should be me, like you're saying, you get in that ego. And then we get away from the one biggest thing that you just talked about earlier is team. Like, I'm a firm believer in team before self. I say this every day with my job. Like, every day when I go to work, my goal is to make sure that every single one of my guys go home safely, and I'll do everything in my power to do so. But that we as a group, if they need anything, it's my job to step up. So it's like when you start getting away from that team mentality and it becomes a me focus, ultimately, I think you kind of lose sight of what's important. And it just seems like the older we get, the more and more that becomes a problem. And, on that topic, I feel like, let's be honest with each other, like, very, very small percentage of kids, that start playing a certain sport end up going pro. We all have that mindset. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if you have that vision, that's where you want to be. You should 100% like focus on that kind of thing. But understand that some of the best players, some of the best athletes are team sports. It's if you want to do things on your own, even when I was driving a race car, I was ultimately the one in control of the race car. But I had a huge team to make that race car do the things that it does. And, and it's just one of those things. It's like, I feel like as we get older, we focus more on ourselves because we're trying to get I get it, right? Because it's like, I want to go to college. I want to play professional ball. Like, I want to do this. And so, like, you get in that mindset of like, well, I got to focus on what's best for me. Well, when truly, when you pull scouts and stuff, and you pull coaches in, like, when we play as a team, and we succeed as a team, very rarely I feel like our scouts go over here going, oh, there's this one player over at the Charleston High School basketball team that's really good. It's like, no, most people are like, oh, Charleston High School basketball team got our attention. We should probably pay attention. They got a really good team over there. So now we're starting to pay attention to the teams like, oh, this kid is really good at this. This kid supports that team. Like, nobody's going to hire a single person for a team sport, right? Like it doesn't. So I feel like as we get older, that's kind of where we start to fall off. And I feel like the difficulties of trying to, I would say, even appreciate the coaching and appreciate the teaching and actually trying to absorb that like a sponge, like we did at the younger ages. 7 and 8, we're wanting to learn everything about the game. And for some odd reason, we think once we're in high school, we know everything about the game and we're the best players in the country.
Yeah, some kids they're harder to coach at that senior. When they get to be seniors, I already know that. I already know this. I already know that. Well, you know it, but you're not doing it.
True.
You're going 1-on-5 to the basket and it doesn't work and you're blaming the official because they didn't call a foul. First of all, if you don't go 1-on-5, you don't have to worry about the official. How about let's get the team involved? If it's 5 guys playing defense against you, let's work together so that you get that basket rather than complain about not getting fouls called so you get to shoot free throws or whatever.
Yeah.
My dad always said, or my grandpa always said too, the older I get, the less I know. And that's kind of how I feel nowadays because there's so much knowledge out there in the world. And I think, when you're young, you think you know everything. And then as you get older, you're like, shoot, I wasn't that smart in 7th grade. I just thought I was.
Yeah.
I thought my mom and dad were pretty stupid. And then look back and then you realize, maybe I wasn't the one that was so smart or whatever,
It's like, man, they had a point. Yeah. Well, and it's kind of one of those things too. It's like, we're always like, oh, I'm good at this. Well, trust me when I tell you, there's always going to be someone better than you, and that shouldn't upset you. That shouldn't make you angry. Like, if anything, that should drive you because it's like you're always chasing something. Like this is where I'm at, and like that's always kind of a big thing for me. Is like I try to find. I had a buddy tell me one time. He's like, "Man, if you're the biggest person in the gym, find another gym. Like you're in the wrong place."
That's a good line. I like that.
Yeah, because it's like
big fish in small ponds sometimes.
Yeah, you're not going to get better by being the best person there. And like it's funny because we sit here and we're talking of like, in my eyes, you are hands down one of the best basketball coaches that I've ever personally known and watched play and coach the game of basketball. But then in your eyes, you're sitting here going, well, I'm no Bobby Knight. I'm no Tom Izzo, and these dudes, it's like Bobby Knight, I will argue with you until I'm blue in the face, will probably be one of the best basketball coaches to ever do the job.
Why don't you mention that? I was at a clinic with Stan Van Gundy and George Karl. They both coached in the NBA. And after sitting down and talking to them after they were done their presentation, a lot of coaches were there afterwards to go get some free alcohol or go get free meals or whatever. I sat down and talked with them personally. And after I was done talking, I said, you guys, I told them 2 separate years. I said, you remind me of Bob Knight. And they both said the same thing. And they hadn't talked to each other or anything about this, I don't think. And said, oh, don't compare me to Bob Knight. I thought they were going to bash him and say how bad he was. And they go, that guy is the greatest coach that's ever coached the game of basketball as far as knowing the game, attention to detail. If that screen is a millimeter off, it's not a good screen. He was a perfectionist. I know some of his off-court antics or on-court antics, some of them weren't maybe not the best. But as far as his ability to coach the game of basketball, they said that guy's superior to none. I mean, and they both said that 2 separate years, the same thing. Because their knowledge just blew me away. I thought I had learned a lot from Tom Izzo and Bill Self and Bruce Weber and Lon Kruger and John Calipari and all the different coaches I was around at clinics. And then I listened to George Karl talk and Stan Van Gundy, and I'm like, whoa, these guys are on a different level. They coach in the NBA for a reason. These guys are really, really, really good. And, it's when you think you're the best, that's when you're done learning.
Oh,
You got to always keep reaching, always trying to learn. I learn from my students in the driver's ed car all the time. Some of the things I learn is not always good, but the other day we were down the road. Hey, you see that airplane, that new airplane hangar out there? That's going to be Rural Kings or something. I'm like, okay, I learned something from my kids again.
Yeah.
They're always teaching me something. And some of it's accurate. Some of it I find out later is not accurate. But that's part of teaching and coaching and things like that too. But
well, on the Bobby Knight subject, I constantly joke about this. I'm like, I think we need to sign a petition. And no offense to obviously Simon, I can't pronounce his last name there, but I firmly believe that the Assembly Hall should be the Knight Assembly Hall, like the Bob Knight Assembly Hall, like that man. And so you talk about his like on court and off court antics and like the things that he does, and like maybe wasn't the best, but it was, you would never question his passion for the game. All right. And no difference with you, when watching you I mean, constantly, hey coach, you got to get back here. I'm giving you a warning, or, hey, we're getting a technical for this. It's like you and people like that have such a passion for the sport and want to succeed in this sport. That, yeah, maybe the antics were, that Bob Knight, the chair probably wasn't the greatest thing.
Well, you heard what he said about that, didn't you? It's kind of a funny story. He was in Puerto Rico when he threw the chair across the room, and they asked him later. They interviewed him and said, "Why did you throw the chair?" He said, "So I saw an old lady coming across this sideline. I thought she needed a place to sit." So that was a pretty good line. But no, back to Bob Knight. That people don't talk about the good things he did either. Like maybe some people don't. There was a kid named Landon Turner, I think is his name. Don't hold me to that, but I think that was his name. He got in a wreck between his junior year and senior year in college, or sophomore and junior year, one of those 2 years, and he was paralyzed. And he went back into Coach Knight's office in a wheelchair and handed him his uniform and his whatever else he had from Bob Knight. And Bob Knight goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Well, Coach, if you can't notice, I'm paralyzed. I can't play anymore, so I'm going to have to leave school because I don't have the money to pay for school." And Bob Knight goes, "No, you're not leaving school." And kid goes, "Well, I lost my scholarship, for playing." Coach Knight wrote him a check and gave it to him. He said, "Yeah, you'll stay in school, and you're going to complete your education here, and you're not going anywhere." And he wrote the check out on his own checkbook, and not a school check, and people don't talk about that stuff, and some things can be fabricated a little bit too, but some things were obvious that he did a couple things that probably weren't right, or whatever. But you're right, as far as his ability to coach the game, it's hard to take that. It's like Pete Rose, that guy had over 4,000 hits. There's nobody in baseball today that can hit like Pete Rose. 4,000 hits. And he said he wouldn't even have made it towards the end of his career because he didn't hit enough home runs. He wasn't big enough. He wasn't strong enough. He wasn't fast enough. And he goes, "I was just a baseball player." And over 4,000 hits, he's not in the Hall of Fame. And because of his gambling that he did. But that wasn't when he was a player. That happened after he was a player. So there's a lot of people that think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame now.
Oh, no question.
And that. So you got to kind of look at the whole picture on some things too. It's not just, but yeah, as far as attention to detail, as far as being able, just as far as the coaching part, take everything else away. That guy can coach. I've never been around anybody with 5,000 coaches in an auditorium, and you could hear a pin drop when he walked in the gym. He had that much respect as a coach and the way he coached the game. And most players you talk to, I talked to Michael Lewis, that's coaching at Ball State University, head coach there. And he said, "There's nothing Bob Knight wouldn't do for you if you made it through 4 years of his program. He'd be there for anybody at a drop of a hat. He'd be the first one there if you had a problem. Or if you need a job, he's getting you the job. And because you make it through 4 years of his, what I called it, military basketball. If you can make it through that, you can make it through anything in life. And life becomes real easy after going through 4 years of Bob Knight." And that's what he's saying. That's not me saying that. That's Michael Lewis that coached at Eastern as an assistant and then went on to become a head coach at Ball State University. So,
that's awesome. And and it's weird how that always works, right? Because like you and I could do a million great things in the entire world, but we do one bad thing, and that's what you remember. It's like, but the people who truly know and appreciate guys like Bob Knight, like yourself, that you understand, like you met Bob, you've seen the things, you talked to him, you knew him, you knew the kind of person he was, and so it's like it doesn't matter the bad things because you know all the great things that he did, and like unfortunately that's always the worst.
Everybody makes mistakes, and not saying it's right, but everybody does make mistakes. We all do.
Yeah.
And it's this
daily.
Yeah. Every day I wake up in the morning and I go towards school and I should be going towards the golf course or something's a mistake.
That's a big problem. No. That's a big problem.
But,
yes, sir.
No, hopefully it makes a difference. That's the main thing.
I just got a couple more things. I won't take up a whole much more time. So a big thing that we kind of talk about, and I think this is a perfect question for you because I have personally seen, and obviously anybody that's listened to this podcast up to this point, the common denominator we have here is your passion for the youth, for passion for the kids and to make kids better. And so one of the things that we kind of want to touch on is like coachable kids. Like, what's the importance for parents to teach their kids to be coachable? Because I feel like we're kind of getting away from that a lot more because I don't know if it's like we've instilled this entitlement of like, you deserve all of this kind of thing, or like, so just curious, like that's something we strive for with our kiddos, like always turn your mouth off, turn your ears on, listen to listen, don't listen to talk. Always be, because it seems like that's a big thing, especially nowadays. It's like kids sit there and they're waiting for you to stop talking so they can get their words in. And it's like, no, man, stop talking, pay attention and listen to learn and not listen to talk. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what's your thoughts on like, what is the importance of, having coachable kids, and you can tie also like work ethic into that as well.
Yeah, that's great. You're given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, but listening is so important. And here's the biggest problem is parents think they're helping their kid, but when they tear down the coach or they try to get that, hey, your coach doesn't know anything about what he's talking about, you need to listen to me or whatever. The problem is that kid takes that back to the court and it comes out. It shows up that, hey, I'm not listening to that coach. And then the next thing you know, your kid's sitting on the bench and you helped get him there because you're trying to tell him what you want him to do. Coach is trying to tell him what he wants him to do. The kid's confused. They don't know which way to go. I got to listen to my mom and dad. No, I got to listen to the coach. They get torn apart. They get torn to pieces by doing that to them. That's one of the worst things you can do is try to override the coach, Now, if the coach is doing something wrong, to your kid being, that's different. But as far as just playing the sport, every coach has different philosophies. Like my coach, my philosophy in coaching basketball was not, let's see how many 3-pointers we could shoot. I wanted layups, I wanted free throws, and I wanted 15-footers open, wide open. And then if I had a kid that could really shoot a 3-pointer, I would let him shoot it. Notice I said kid. Not just everybody has the opportunity to jack it up every time they get it on the 3-point line. If a kid's put the time in and he makes more than he makes I used to tell my kids, if you can make 12 out of 15 threes consistently, 10 to 12 out of 15 threes, I'll green light you until you give me a reason not to. That doesn't mean shoot 3 feet behind the line. That means shoot right up, stepping in from a ball going into the post and coming back out. There's an interesting statistic a few years ago. It's probably been about 10 years ago now, but in college basketball, you come down the floor and jack up a three, it was 17% in college basketball. After 1 pass, it went up to 22%. After 5 passes and it went into the post and came back out, it went up to almost 50%.
Oh, wow.
So just to come down and fire it up usually doesn't work out unless you got a kid in rhythm that's hit 3 or 4 in a row and then he's just feeling it. Then that's a different thing. But yeah, I just think, being coachable is everything. I mean, there are a lot of teams that I coached that my 5 best players did not start the game. Sometimes it was 2 or 3 of my best players and 2 or 3 kids that did what I wanted them to do. They played defense. I had a kid named George Von Barron one time. He averaged about 1 or 2 points a game, but he never came out. because he locked down on the other team's best player that averaged 20 points a game, and he'd score 2 to 4 or 6 points a game, and he'd score more than the other team's best player. Was he a big scorer? No, but he did what I wanted him to do. And George, I had a parent come out of the stands after a game after me one time because of George, because this lady told me, you need to get your kids under control. I said, I got them under control. I love them. I'm proud of them. They're doing a great job, because her little son didn't get his 20 points. He got 2 that night for Mattoon High School, or Mattoon Middle School, I mean. And that was kind of a fun night. I enjoyed that night a lot more than she did, because my kid played as a team. He didn't care about his points. He cared about making sure the other team didn't score.
Yeah.
And see, if he'd have been listening to his dad, like, you need to shoot more, you need to shoot more. Well, he wasn't a great shooter. He made himself a pretty good shooter, but he wasn't a great shooter in 8th grade. And he got better as he got older, but he didn't care about his points. He cared about the other kid on the other team not scoring. And that's playing as a team. That's being coachable. And sometimes your job is to be Dennis Rodman. Come out of there with 20 rebounds. Yeah. I don't care if you score a point the whole night.
Yeah.
Or, hey, let's get our best shooter the ball in the right spot so he can score and you get the assist. And your job is just as important as the guy that shot it.
Well, and George is a couple years older than me, but case in point, there's George ended up being a very good athlete.
Yeah.
I think he played some baseball and stuff too, and was a pretty good baseball player. But again, when you have guys like that care about the team, but they're coachable, they're going to do what the coach is kind of telling them, and obviously as a coach, you're not going to tell them to do something that you think that's terrible.
Yeah.
I'm not going to send you in the wrong direction and be like, well, I hope it works out. But there's definitely something to be said about it. So just curious on that. So from a parent standpoint, what's your thoughts on, so say a coach does something that you don't agree with, or that like, hey, I didn't think this was a good play. I don't think this, is it ever, you kind of get like the mixed ideas. Like, is it something, obviously don't do it during the game, but maybe afterwards, like, hey, I'm just curious, like, why do we do things like that? Like, or does that come across from a coach? Like, why are you questioning me? I'm the coach. Like, because sometimes I believe that parents do that in a sense of like, well, I don't agree with you, and I just want you to know that I don't agree with you. But then you do have coach or parents that like, I don't understand why we did that way, but I want to know why.
Right.
And I think if you're genuinely want to learn and want to know why we did things, but I know it can be kind of perceived or taken a certain way of like, well, why are you questioning me? I'm the coach. Like,
well, the nice thing about you asking me that is I was a parent too. I've been a parent for 22 years to my daughter, and I sat there and watched other coaches coach her. And there were times where I was like, what the heck are they doing? But there again, I never interfered, never said anything, to another coach that ever coached my kid. I'd sit as far away as I could from everybody else so that I could talk to myself if I needed to. But no, I guess the thing of it is, as coaches, we'll set up a play. We'll run it perfect in practice over and over and over and over again. And all of a sudden we get in a game, we run that play and it doesn't work. Well, it could work. That could happen. It only takes one player to mess up an entire play out of 5. If one guy goes the wrong way or doesn't get his screen set or doesn't do what he's supposed to do, it's like a train. If you're pulling it with a chain, one of those little hooks breaks, that train doesn't move anymore. And so it's hard to question that. Now, what you can do to help you and help your kid, if your kid doesn't understand, I would tell your kid, hey, go in, just say, hey, coach, I just got a question. I don't understand on a certain play or whatever. I just don't understand why we keep running this if it's not working for us, because maybe they switch to a zone or, there's so many variables. Sometimes you'll run a man-to-man play. I used to call 23, and everybody in the country knows that's a 2-3 zone. And I do that on purpose on an inbounds play, and we'd immediately jump to man, and they'd run a zone play, and we just steal the ball. And so that coach is going, what the heck? We just ran the perfect play against this zone, but they weren't even in a zone. So things can change really rapidly. We used to guard 4 in zone 1, guard 3 in zone 2. We did a lot of junk when I coached. we didn't play a straight, and we'd set up in a 1-2-2. We weren't even in a 1-2-2. Or we'd set up at the wrong end of the court to start the third quarter on purpose. And I tell my kids, tell your parents to keep their mouth shut. We know what we're doing. And we'd throw the ball the other end and go score, trick plays. Or we'd throw it off a guy's back on an inbounds play and make a bucket underneath the basket. So sometimes as a coach, I would call out things on purpose, and we weren't even in that defense or in that offense. And like I had a parent one time come out of during halftime. It was a varsity game, and he goes, Why are you playing a zone? And I looked at him and I go, what are you talking about? We're not in a zone. We're guarding four and we're playing a one-man zone. And he just looked at me, and it wasn't a kid that was playing on a team. It was one of my friends that was trying to give me a hard time, and I let him have it. And he just, so sometimes you don't know the whole story too, as a parent. You don't know what they're really trying to accomplish. And it may not be the first option they're looking for. Sometimes it's the second or third or fourth option in an inbounds play. It's not always the first option. And a kid will throw it in on the first option and the ball gets stolen. And it should have been, hey, let's wait till the third option. Let's wait till the fourth option. And the kid does it, And then I've done plays before myself and it didn't work. And my wife asked me after the game, why'd you run that play? And I said, well, if I knew it wasn't going to work, I wouldn't have ran it. But you had to make that call on a spontaneous second. Like, hey, I got to have a call in there or nothing's going to happen. We're going to get a 5-second call. We're not even going to get the ball in bounds. So things can happen really quick in a basketball game. You have more time to think in baseball. You have more time to think in football. But in basketball, it happens so quick. You got the ball is constantly moving. People are moving up and down the floor. There's things happening so quick that sometimes as coaches, we miss things. We don't always see everything.
Well, it's like, what was it? Mike Tyson said in an interview like long ago, everybody's got to play until you get punched in the mouth kind of thing, right? So it's like everybody's like, this is going to work. This is going to be flawless. And all of a sudden you like kind of take that hit and you're like, oh man, that did not work at all. It's like, and that was, so I guess to kind of go off of with that question of, and correct me if I'm wrong. So kind of the way I'm taking it is like, if your kid does not understand, obviously the best thing they can do is come to the coach and say, hey, I'm just curious. Why are we doing this? And don't question it in like what are you doing?
In an asking manner, like, hey, I just don't understand something. I was hoping you could help me. Can you help me with this? Yeah. Can you give me some understanding? Because I'm trying to do what you want me to do, but this is like, I used to tell my kids, I want to talk to you first, then I'll talk to your parents. But really, I told my parents at the parent meeting, if you come and ask me, what do I need to do to get more playing time for your kid? What does your kid need to do to get better, to play more? I'm going to tell them all the same thing. You got to rebound better. You got to pass better. You got to defend better. You've got to get better at every aspect of the game. Because guess what? If I was coaching Michael Jordan, I'd tell him the same thing. Yeah. And in my day, he's the best player I've ever seen in person play a basketball game in his prime.
Well, and kind of the whole point to that too is like, if the parent's coming to you saying, hey, what does my kid need to do to get more playing time? What's my kid need to do to be more part or get more points, whatever it may be? As a parent, you should never, this is my personal opinion, you should never come ask me that question if your kid hasn't already, right? Like you're sitting here going, well, what's my kid need to do to get more playing time? Well, why does your kid not come to me and be like, hey, coach, what do I need to do to get better? What do I need to do to play more? What do I need to do to score more points? Like, where are my weak points? Like,
I guess, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but
no, you're good.
But the best thing you could ask that parent, or as a kid, or the kid can tell the parent, and at the parent meeting, I'd say this: how much time does your kid spend on basketball outside of the season? Do they go out and practice every day, or do they play video games? How much time and effort are they putting in outside of the actual season itself? And a lot of parents will be like, oh, my kid never goes out and plays, Well, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Yeah. And also it's not just always about what your kid's doing. It's just maybe the kids are better ahead of them. Yeah. And that's hard to see as a parent because I live that. I watched my daughter all the way through. And, I remember in 7th grade basketball, she wasn't getting to play very much. And my question to her was, How much time are you putting into basketball? You're playing softball 90 games a year. You're playing golf all the time. Yeah, you're playing volleyball. You're doing all these other things. How important is that to you? And she goes, well, Dad, basketball is not one of my favorite sports, and no offense. And I'm like, Hannah, it's not offense. I want you to do what's best for you in your life. I don't need to live through your life. I've already been an athlete. I want you to do what's best for you. And I think some parents get caught up in the socialization thing.
Yeah.
They want their kid to be the superstar, or at least in the top 5 in basketball, because it's social status for them.
Yeah.
And I've had kids come back and say to me, Coach, I've said, hey, do you think I'm being unfair to you? No, Coach. No, you're a really good coach. You're really fair. And that parent had a parent meeting with me before and didn't understand. The kid understood, but the parent didn't understand. And sometimes you, as a parent, you need to talk to your kid and see what they're thinking too. It's not all about you as a parent. It's check with your kid and see, and you might get a different answer than what you're feeling.
Yeah.
I've been on both sides of the fence on that as a parent and as a coach and as a parent coach. And I did help coach my daughter in Mattoon Pride softball and Charleston Shell softball. And I helped Mr. Lilford in AAU basketball with that group that was so good and all that. And my daughter wasn't a star on that team. I told her, I said, you need to pass, be a good passer. You need to be a good rebounder. You need to play good defense. And I made the mistake of, hey, once in a while when you're open, you need to shoot the ball too. And I didn't say that. So I probably hurt my daughter in that way because I was like, hey, you got to be a good teammate, be a good teammate first. Think about your teammates first, yourself second. And you got to have a little balance there too. I mean, you got to work on your, shooting and all that too. I don't want to devalue shooting because you got to score more points than the other team. But if you can, if you can win 2-0, that's a good win too in a basketball game.
Yeah, win to win,
or 1-0 or 3-0 or whatever. But no, you need to have balance. And sometimes I went overboard the other way with my daughter, and I know I did. I kind of messed that up. So if I ever have a grandson or a granddaughter, I'll be like, hey, you got to take your open shot once in a while too.
Right.
Otherwise they guard us 5-on-4 instead of, we want everybody to be a weapon, not just 4 of you.
Yeah.
Well,
and so like it's weird, but like when you talk about how much time you put in my head, like, and obviously we talked about, Michael Jordan stuff, is like in my head, I remember like the opening scenes of the Space Jam movie where Michael's dad comes walking out. It's like, son, what are you doing out here? It's 3:00 in the morning. He's like, I couldn't sleep. And he's just sitting there shooting. He's like, and his dad ultimately could be like, you need to get in the house right now and go to sleep. But he said, all right, man, you know what? Let's shoot till you miss. And he kind of embraced that. And he's like, hey, he's putting in the work. And the kid, every shot, obviously I get it. It's a movie, but he's like, I'm going to play, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And he's like, I'm going to play in the NBA. And he's like, all right. He's like, listen, and he just didn't miss. And then, you see him like dribbling or walking away and he turns back around and like visualizes him like dunking the basketball, and it's like, but that was one of those things is like Michael Jordan and guys like Kobe Bryant, I heard so many stories with Kobe where dudes would be like, I'm going to get up early and go into practice. And he's like, I'm going to beat everybody here. And they show up and like Kobe's already done a workout before the team even got there. And he's like ready to go again kind of thing, and it's like those dudes dedicated their life to that craft and wanted to be good at it.
No doubt. The greatest athletes in the world, when I think of Walter Payton, used to run 5 miles to a sandhill and run up and down that sandhill. He'd run up it, walk down it, and he'd do that 10 times. Then he'd go back and lift weights, and then he'd go to football practice with the Bears. And, he did that every day. Herschel Walker did 500 push-ups and 500 sit-ups every day and took Sundays off. Tiger Woods used to putt for an hour every day, chip for an hour every day, hit balls for an hour, go out and play, and would then come back and work on his weaknesses when he got done playing and for an hour. Whatever he did the worst that day, that's what he practiced the most.
That's awesome.
And he'd lift weights every day. And there's another one, again, his off course antics sometimes weren't the greatest, but his work ethic was superior to none.
Yeah. Well, and I think it was John Daly. Obviously, you're going to talk about some off course antics, but John Daly was talking about his interview or the time that he played with Tiger, he's like, we literally shot the match. And John's like, I went to the bar And Tiger's like, no, I gotta go practice. Like I'm gonna go shoot some more. I'm gonna go play this. I'm gonna chip. I'm gonna do whatever it may be. And it's like, so this man just played this game and realized like, hey, here's where my shortcomings were, and like went to and fix those. And I think a lot of that too, and correct me if I'm wrong, comes with being real to yourself, right? Like,
Yeah.
I could sit here and tell you like, I'm the best in the entire world at something. But once I get in that mindset and think that I'm the best at it, I start to kind of lose that focus. Like, you got to be real with yourself. Like, I sucked at this today. I sucked at this today. I sucked at this today. Now let's get better at this, and this, and like
Henry Dahmercan at Eastern played basketball for Eastern with Kyle Hill. He made 100 free throws and 100 3-pointers every day before he allowed himself to have breakfast.
Man.
There was a kid from T-Town about 8 or 10 years ago that had a tractor tire in his backyard. He had to move it 100 yards. Then he could have dinner or have breakfast. Then when he got home from school, he moved it back 100 yards. And then he would allow himself to have dinner.
That's awesome.
And it's about doing more than what the other guy's doing. You got to outwork the people, and you got to outsmart them too.
Yeah.
Don't dribble with one ball, dribble with two. Pistol Pete Maravich, this is not a good thing to do, but he did it. He dribbled a basketball down a train track. That's a bad idea.
Oh.
But, just putting yourself, I know Allison Curtin that played basketball for Taylorville. She was an all-stater, played for the Illini back in the day, a long time ago. But she would dribble 2 basketballs with a backpack on down to in her driveway. She lived out in the country. I heard a story about this. She'd dribble 2 basketballs down, get the mail, put it in a backpack, and dribble a quarter of a mile back on a rock road with 2 basketballs.
Oh.
So you learn how to handle the ball pretty well when the ball's going all kinds of different directions as you're trying to go down the rock driveway. But yeah, I've been lucky to be around a lot of those guys. I've heard stories about Larry Bird. I know Jay Scheidler from Lawrenceville, Illinois, probably the greatest high school basketball shooter I've ever seen in my life. Who did he play for? He played for the Kentucky Wildcats, won a national championship at Kentucky, and then when the NBA brought the 3-point shot out, and he picked him up. But anyway, Jay Scheidler used to put rocks in the door of the gym. And I'm not saying this is a good thing. Get to know the janitors at night. That's a better way of doing it. But he'd sleep in the gym, and he'd shoot till he fell asleep in the gym, and then he'd get up the next day, go to school, and do it again. And it's a commitment if you want to be the best. And we keep saying the best, but just to get better, rather than make excuses or blame the coach, put your time in.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised how much benefit you'll get out of that.
And I think a lot there too is, we, like you said, we keep saying the best. Like, I think kind of the big thing is like, yeah, there's something to be said about being the best to ever do it. Right. But like at the end of the day,
to get better. Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day is like, strive to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, that's a great way of saying that.
Like if if I'm bad at something and my goal is to just become the best at that, like, I constantly make the joke that like, I want to be that guy. Like it's like, if you bought a new house and you're trying to move your furniture, I want you to be like, hey, let's call Schwenky. Like if something bad happens and you need some extra support or whatever for like the law enforcement side of things or whatever, hey, let's call Schwenky. Like, if you need something built out of wood, let's call Schwenk. Like, I want to be that guy that's like, and so I struggle or I challenge myself every day to like learn something new or get better at something that I'm not very good at. And, so I think.
You know what the cool thing about what you're saying is? That takes anxiety, throws it out in the street, drop kick it out in the street and watch a semi run over the anxiety because you're having goals. You're striving for different things. You're trying to be really good at a lot of things, and you're learning every day. You don't have time for anxiety or fear.
No.
You don't have that. You don't have time for that. You have a job. You have hobbies. You have kids. You have a wife. You've got all these great things in your life. You don't have time to worry about everything. Yeah. You don't have time for social media and what somebody's saying about you. If some of these kids. That they've asked me questions before in the driver's ed car about, what can I do? I said, get off that stupid social media because, that's not helping you any.
No.
And I've had kids come back later and say, man, coach, that's the best thing I ever did. People are talking about me and I don't even know it. unless somebody tells me about it, I don't know what they're saying on social media about me because I'm not on it anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, we're getting somewhere.
I mean,
Is your life better or worse? And they're like, oh, it's a lot better.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of kids come back and tell me that.
And, and kind of a big thing with that is like social media is like the best, worst thing in the entire world. Like it has so much ability to be a good thing because it's like, obviously we're here, right? I'm sitting down with you. And if one person listens to this podcast and is like, yeah, you know what? They're right. I need to be better. Like I need to do this. I want to be a better person. I want to do this. This is worth every bit of our talking.
Exactly. And I call that a tool.
Yeah.
Use technology as a tool,
100%.
Not a complete everything lifestyle. Being able to, I think technology is awesome for getting in touch and being with friends and family, living in other states and things like that. I think it's great to learn things from podcasts and things like that.
Yeah.
I think those are great technology pieces and tools.
Yeah.
But just to make that you're living off what other people are saying about you that's not a good, healthy thing. And it causes, and in law enforcement, that a lot of your problems come from what somebody says about somebody on social media.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, case in point, I two of my officers, kind of went through a situation earlier this year. One officer completely deactivated his social media, Facebook, all this stuff, and the other one didn't. The one that didn't see it obviously dealt with things a lot better, but still to this day, the one that kept his social media and seen how the community turned on him and just like until they realized that, hey, he was actually in the right. But the problem with words is you can't take back words, like you can say I'm sorry, but you can't unhear, so you can't unread what people say about you. And so like he sat there and seen like, man, these people who I literally risk my life for every day, turn on me in an instant, because they didn't know, and they didn't know the whole story. And that still to this day bothers him, to where the other officer was able to just kind of disengage from that, and was able to deal with the situation, without the added stuff. Um, you know, Agreed with the social media stuff and like things can be a tool. I call it YouTube University. Like if you ever need to learn something, somebody on YouTube has probably put this out there, and that's, I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of things where like I didn't quite know how to do this. So I'm like, oh, I'll watch a couple YouTube videos and try to really figure it out. And then I'm going to go physically do it myself, kind of thing. So I definitely agree. And you and I 100% share the same beliefs on video games, social media, things like that, And with the business, I'm noticing like I have to do more social media stuff because like that's the thing nowadays. But it's like I hate it. Like, like I hate social media.
I guess I know I'm old school. I just like real life, real world stuff. More. And being a former PE teacher for 28 years, I'm always trying to get kids to get out and move. And do I think video games are all bad? No. I think, but kids that stay on there for 24 hours a day, 20 hours a day and sleep 4 or whatever, I don't know that that's healthy. I just don't, in my opinion, I don't think it is. I think they're missing out on a lot of real life experience.
Yeah.
And talking to somebody face to face is pretty cool too. And it's kind of neat, really. Some people need to try it.
I love human interaction.
I do too.
I live for that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And I will say on that too, we get more and more calls for like loud noise complaints or whatever, like, oh, my neighbor's music is loud or whatever it may be. And so people are calling the cops to come tell their neighbor to turn their music down. It's like,
they could walk over and ask nicely.
Hey man,
like say, hey, I really like your music, but it's a little loud and I'm having trouble sleeping and I got to get up and work the next day. Just a simple communication.
Yep, 100%.
But I think podcasts are awesome. I watch them all the time, and I learn from podcasts. I'm always trying to learn from somebody else and what they're saying. Some things I take it and think, that's not going to work for me. And some things I look at it like, hey, that's a good point.
Yeah,
that person's making. So even if you watch a podcast and get one good point out of it, that's all you need.
Yeah, I honestly don't know that I could tell you the last time I turned my actual radio on. Like in my squad car, driving wherever I'm going, I'm always listening to podcasts. Like working in the shop, it's podcasts, and like I love podcasts of like the Born Primitive podcast is one I follow. Like those are all special forces guys. The Sean Ryan show, like a lot of like ex special forces dudes, because like one, I have a passion for that kind of thing. But two, um, these dudes are the NFL level of this space. Like they're the elite of the elite, and it's like you didn't get there you didn't wake up one day and it's like, hey, guess what, I'm now a special forces operator. Like you worked and you worked and you worked and you wanted to be better and you strive to be better, and like you went through hell to get there. And so like I listen to those guys because like, okay, you know what, this is what it takes. Like if I'm going to be the best at this, or the best version of myself of this, I got to put up or shut up. And
Yeah.
so that was a big thing. But I think that kind of covers everything. Obviously, I'm not going to take too much of your time. We've been talking a good little while here, but it's always a great time to catch up. And I truly hope that if anything, that today helps you understand like how much you have made an impact in your life, and if we struggle as humans, as people in the community, to explain to you or show you how much we mean, like how much you mean to us, and the staple that you are to the community, I would like to speak on behalf of all of us. You're a phenomenal human being, and we're all very fortunate to have you in our lives, and have you as an aspect in our life. So, very much appreciated.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I also really I want everybody out there to know that's had me as a teacher or a coach or whatever, how much it means for you to come back and talk to me and just say hi. And I always like to hear how you're doing and what you're doing. That's the most important thing to me, is what you're doing with your life now, and what your kids' names are and what they're doing in their lives. And that means so much to me. That makes it all worthwhile. And doing this right here has made my day. I've just really enjoyed it. And I hope somebody gets something out of it, even if it's one person, like you said, if it's one person that gets something that makes them think, like, hey, maybe I ought to try that or do that or whatever. That hopefully we've helped one person. That'd be great.
Well, I will tell you, in seventh and eighth grade, I never thought that I'd be sitting down at a podcast in my basement with you, and like, so that part's kind of cool how it all comes full circle. But, and one of the things that I would tell you that I will always appreciate is when you see my wife and my kid at the school district, you always kind of like go out of your way to talk to my kid and like, encourage him. And it's like, I love that because although you're not his teacher, you're not his coach, he gets to enjoy some of that of what I know of you, of that like positive reinforcement. Like you're always like talking him up, and I will also say I greatly appreciate that you're always like, man, you got the best dad in the world. So it's I'll have to send you a Christmas card.
Well, I got to be honest. We're on here to tell the truth, right?
Right, absolutely. Well, sir, I will say, is there anything else that you would like to say as far as?
Oh, thank you for this opportunity. It's been great. I've enjoyed every second of it.
Oh, obviously, I will sit down and talk to you anytime, cameras or no cameras. I'm always excited to have a conversation with you. But so real quick, the radio station thing. So if they obviously, now that we put a name, a face to the name and all that good jazz. What radio station is it?
It's 92.1 The Axe.
Okay, and that's
one of those Cromwells out of Mattoon. There's 4 stations there.
Okay. And that's for
it's
games?
For all of Charleston High School boys varsity basketball games.
Perfect.
I'm the color commentary guy.
Perfect.
And Ramin Karbasian does all the play-by-play, as well as when he can't be there or something, then it becomes Rob Calhoun or Lane Blickham. Awesome. And they're all phenomenal. I really enjoy working with all of them, and I learn from them all the time. They're really good radio people. They're the best, and I'm just glad they let me do it with them.
Well, and obviously your passion for the sport. So like it always helps with the commentary side of things if somebody understands and loves the sport that they're talking about. So if you guys are interested, now that you obviously seen Coach and listen to the interview and stuff, if you want to tune in and listen to him kind of commentate some of the Charleston High School basketball games, obviously I would always recommend to you. Even if you're not parents, if you're just community members, pack those stands, like that's huge to those kids. Like to see that they have support from people and they're not doing it on their own. is huge. So I would always, offer or challenge you to, maybe if you've never been to a game, go to a game a year, or like do something to kind of just go check it out and support them and just let them know that obviously we have a community behind them, because that kind of drives them to be better. So
Very well said.
well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. It's been a great time. So thank you again, and think you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.